It's been a long while since I last spoken to this thing. There maybe I was done listening or something of the like, but I guess I was wrong. The gulls, they're louder these days. Used to be I couldn't even stand their cries, and now they're almost right, like part of the rhythm of this place. Greater Marrow feels alive again. The streets don't always look so grey come morning. The market don't quite smell so sour. Maybe that's just a bit of my syndrome. Folks have been smiling more when they see me, calling out morning sea dog from the porches or their windows. Feels strange. Be good maybe, but strange all the same. The fishmonger, he says the catch has been better since I came around. Luck of the other world, he calls it. He laughs when he says it, but there's a look in his eyes that says he half believes it. Maybe they all do. Been out there on the water most days, running the nets and fixing the holes. I got me calluses now. Real ones. Funny thing used to be, when I'd press a blade to my arm, it'd ring like struck porcelain. And now it just gives. The skin's soft, warm too, bleeds if I nick it. Doesn't always, didn't always. My arms have gone meat, maybe, but softer, like iron gone flesh. The joints, they ache when the cold sets in, but I can feel them now. Feel the salt sting when it gets in the cuts, the burn when the wind hits raw skin. I thought I'd hate that. Turns out it's not the worst feeling in the world. Not at all. The face, well, face has gone strange, but that shouldn't be a surprise down here in the Marrow. Used to be all one piece, and now it's split right down the snout, horizontally. Got teeth growing where there weren't none before. Sharp motherfuckers, I'll tell you that much. Tear through the inside of my mouth when I lock too long. Hurts like hell. Blood tastes like copper and salt water mixed. The folks don't seem bothered. Some say it even makes me look proper, like a creature of the sea should. I ain't sure what that means, but that's what they say. I got fur now too. Not much, just sprouting in places and wasn't, which is everywhere. Rough, pale stuff. Red where there was red is still red. Even the fur, that's where it's growing, but sometimes I catch my reflection in the tide pool by the docks and I don't know whether to laugh or to be sick. Flesh and meat, bones growing where there weren't none before. Feels like something remembering how to exist but getting it wrong. The shipwright says I'm building character, just like the boat, she says. Gotta patch up the cracks, make something sturdier of what's left, she roughs. She's a strong woman, that one. Got hands like stone, but she's kind in her own way. The mayor, he's the one who really keeps me steady. Always smiling, always saying, this town's got speed again, ever since this wandering sailor washed ashore. He talks about hopes and new tides, and I just nod along, though I don't really know what any of it means. Funny thing is, I sound like him now. You might even notice that. My words, my voice, it's got some sort of roll to it. That the same dides between syllables. I wasn't trying to mimic him, it just happened. It's like a strange hybrid between the two. It's weird. Maybe I've been around him too long. Maybe this place is getting in the bones quicker than I should. But some nights, when I sit out by the water, when the fog's heavy and the sea hums quiet, I still feel it in a way. The old way. The weightless way. When I used to float instead of walk, when I didn't breathe or ache or bleed. That's far away now, isn't it? Like a story I was told and forgot the ending to. I still don't know why I'm here, or what the sea took in that trade, but every time I awake, every time I run my tongue over these teeth, one day out on the water, I was bringing in a haul with the fishmonger. Nets full of those strange, slick fish with pearls and spines. Their eyes and their thrills. They twitch even after you've gutted them. The sky was grey, the kind that's heavy on the shoulders, and I must have been staring out toward the horizon again. That place where the water turns black and the air bends strange. He noticed. He always notices. You got that look again, Sea Dog, he'd say, half laughing, half not. Like you've been waiting for something to crawl out the waves and take you home. I didn't know what to say to that. I just shrugged. Started hauling the catch onto the dock, but he didn't stop talking. No. He never does once he's started. He leaned his weight against the crate, his eyes half on me and half on the sea. You know, he said, the longer you stay in a place like this, the smaller it's gonna feel. The water is gonna close in and that fog is only gonna get thicker. And suddenly, all that's left around is the sound of your own thoughts bumping against the hull. He chuckled low, but it wasn't a kind sound. You grow on your sea legs, lad. Could see it plain as day. Ain't no tremor in your stance, no fear in your hands when the swells hit. It means you'll be off before long, whether you want to or not. I told him I had nowhere to go, that I didn't really know where it was. But he just looked at me, real still like the tide had stopped in mid-pull, and said, I think you do. Whatever you were before, you weren't meant for this. You've got the look of something that just lost out there, lost too long, and then the shores started to make sense. I tried to laugh it off, but my mind split again when I smiled. Blood in the salt air, it always smelt wrong. He looked away again, back out to sea, his voice quieter. There's a lot of soul searching when you're searching for a soul, boy. You keep it at it long enough, maybe you'll remember what yours was. Maybe you'll find one to take its place. I didn't know how to answer him. Didn't think I was supposed to. So I kept working, pulling fish, stacking crates, listening to the gulls and the waves and the soft grind of the docks against the pilings. But the whole time his words stuck in my head. The longer I stay, the smaller it will feel. I went out late, just after the last bell from the docks. The others were asleep, save for the gulls and the creeks and the timbers. I've gotten used to the stillness, used to the way the water hums like it's thinking of me. Some nights it almost feels like it knows my name. Tonight was normal, or what passes for it here. Nets in the water, lantern on the bow, fog thick enough to swallow the sky. I've learned not to mind the tricks of this place. The doppelgangers on the cliffs, ships that mimic mine out in the mist, fires that burn blue and hiss when you stare too long. They don't bother me much. The fishmonger once told me that's a great thing. Said the sea only whispers to those who listen too close. I suppose I stopped listening, stopped answering. But that night, something changed. I was holding the nets, humming to myself when the water went still. Not calm, not glassy, only still. Like the water forgot how to breathe. Even the fog hung quiet. That was when I saw it, just for a moment. Something moved beneath the waves, not a shadow or light. Something ancient, older than the rust of these hulls, older than the words I can't remember from when I washed ashore. It wasn't right. Its edges bent to the water, but the air. It looked like the idea of a thing that should have stayed asleep. Couldn't see it in full form, only the glow. Gold and white and green, twisting together like roots of veins. I blinked once and the sea blinked with it. When it passed under the boat, every rivet and beam began to grow, like the metal wanted to crawl away. My fur stood all in. The glow slipped past, slow as the tide, and for a second I thought I heard it breathe. Not the sea, it. There was a voice under that sound, no words, just weight to them. It pressed into my skull like a tide coming in too fast. I don't remember steering away, I just remember finding myself far from the shore. The light of Greater Merrow faint behind the fog. The nets were torn open. I should have been afraid, but I wasn't. I just felt remembered. It's hard to explain, like something recognized me from below, and for a heartbeat, I almost recognized it too. The truth is, I couldn't help myself. Whatever that thing was, whatever called the Black, slipped around to the far side of the island, and I followed. The engine groaned like it knew better, like even the rust wanted to turn back, but I pressed on nonetheless. The cliffs fell away to nothing but jagged stone and cold wind. The sea here was different. It was heavy and sluggish. My lantern's glow barely reached a yard past the hull, and every time I thought I saw a ripple, it just sank again, like the surface was swallowing itself. And then I realized it wasn't even water. It was something else, mate. It clung to the sides of the boat like tar, slick and black, and thick enough to drag. The smell hit me first, and gods, I don't think it was oil, not the kind the shipwright keeps in her barrels. This stuff had weight, a body, it smelled like rot and salt and something burnt. The lantern light bounced off it in streaks, rainbows trapped in black glass. I dipped a hand overboard once, and when I brought it back up, it moved. This stuff slid between my fingers like I didn't want to let go, whispering against my flesh like tendrils. I set the light line anyway. Habit, maybe. Or maybe I just needed to know. The reels creaked as I dropped them down, the hooks vanishing beneath that oil-skinned surface with a wet hiss. I could see the shimmer below, that same golden light pulsing deep now, bending the darkness around it. That same light I saw even after the squids were pulled up. So I waited. The air was thick. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. I leaned on the rail, staring down at the slow churn of the black. My reflection twisted in the tar. My teeth were glitting, wrong as always. My eyes glowing like lanterns in the deep. The smell got worse the longer I stayed, as if the sea itself was bad, going bad or spoiled. And under it all I could hear the faintest rumble, slow and steady, the same rhythm I'd hear in the static before, a heartbeat. I should have turned back. I knew I should have turned back, but I didn't. The line went tight, but it wasn't like a catch. Not like a fish fighting for its life. No, this was different. The reel screamed. The whole ship lurched forward as if the sea itself had decided to drag me under. My hands clamped that rod, the muscles in my arms burning, the tar stretching and parting in slow, sick waves, and then the surface, it shifted. At first I thought it was just the oil, the way it rippled strange under my lamp, but no. The tar was moving on its own. It was blinking. Dozens, no, hundreds of yellow eyes stared up at me from below the hull. They weren't reflections, they opened up in the oil, like the blackness itself was flesh, and it had chosen to look back at me. Every eye moved in separate, darting, rolling, or narrowing motions, all of them hungry. I couldn't think, I could barely breathe. I did the only thing I knew how to do. I pulled. The rod groaned, the line whining as I fought whatever waited below. The oily sea shifted, the eyes following the motion, and I swear, every time I tugged, the tar twitched like a muscle. Something arose from beneath. It came up slow, the water boiling with that strange golden green shimmer, the smell enough to make me choke. I tied the line round the mast and braced my legs, and when the shape surfaced I saw it. The thing beneath the tar wasn't made for the world above. Its body was all bone and cartilage, pressed into a form that looked halfway between sculpture and corpse, plates layered over plates, carved smooth and ancient, each one cracking open just enough to show the pale glow seething underneath. There were no mouths, no gills, just slits that pulsed, shuddering like enough weak breath to take. Its head ended in a hard, flat shell, rigid like coral turned to stone, and behind it its body stretched into the deep, long and finless, a spined silhouette vanishing into the dark below. It was old. I could feel it in my bones. Not just old in years, it was old in concept, like something that swam before thought was invented. It flicked at the surface, and eyes in the tar widened, flickering brighter, and I did what instinct told me. I grabbed the harpoon. The ship raised high as I did, the point catching in the lamplight, and with every strength I had left I threw it. The harpoon cut through the air and struck. The moment it hit, the water screamed, not in sound through air, but through me. The oil bursted outward, one of those countless yellow eyes popping like a sun behind glass. The waves turned gold, then green and black again, thick and convulsing around the wound, and then silence. The eyes faded. The oil went still. Only the faint shimmer below remained. I reeled in the line with trembling hands, the catch heavy but limp. It broke the surface slow, a rigid thing, flesh like porcelain stone, mouthless, blind, but not quite dead. I landed on the deck, its skin twitching against the boards, humming with a frequency I could feel behind my teeth. I don't know what it was, but I know it wasn't of this sea. It was too perfect, too deliberate. Like something remembered before memory, pulled into shape by accident. The glow still lingers on my hands, even after scrubbing, even after the blood. I brought the thing ashore at first light. The gulls wouldn't come near the boat. And even the flies buzzed in a wide circle, keeping their distance. The tar had dried on the hull like old blood, black and flaking, and the smell, by the gods, the smell hadn't faded. I kept it in a cooler away from all the other fish. The fishmonger was waiting by his stall when I came in. He took one look at the catch and he froze, didn't even touch it, just smelt the air once, like a dog catching a storm, and told me to get out. We dragged it around back, into the open where the fog hadn't yet lifted. He wouldn't go near it, not even with gloves, kept muttering under his breath, where words I couldn't reach were crossing himself with those trembling, oil-stained fingers. He told me, best he could, that it was old, older than our sea, that it wasn't supposed to be seen. I asked him what he meant, but he just looked right past me, like something behind my shoulder was watching. When the mayor arrived, the air changed. He always walks fast for a plump little man, like he's afraid to be still, but that morning he near ran. His boots echoed across the dock as soon as he saw what lay in the netting. He didn't say a word at first, just stared, his face sinking from shock to something hollow. Then he snapped for a cooler, big iron thing, then the kind that they'd use for salt meat and shark carcasses, and before I could say a thing, he and the fishmonger hoisted that creature inside, slammed the lid, and latched it shut with enough locks to keep the fort down. When it was done, he turned to me, told me we'd be taking it north. Not we, I realized. Me. He said there was a place past the cliffs, a fortress of iron and smoke where folk worked the waters. He called it the Rig. I've seen its outline on the horizon hanging like a black spine against the clouds. He told me to take it there, to tell them that they've made a mistake. I asked him what he meant, what mistake, and why everyone is looking at me like I dredged up a corpse that shouldn't have had a name. but he didn't answer. He just put a hand on my shoulder and squeezed too tight until his smile stopped looking like a smile. "This ain't a favor, Sea Dog," he said. "This is just what needs doing." And then he walked off. The fishmonger wouldn't even look at me. Just turned away, wringing his cap in his hands. I swear I saw him mutter something, maybe a prayer, maybe a warning, but the thoughts were eaten by the sea wind. I don't understand it. A fish is a fish, ain't it? Dead things belong to the water or the table. But this one, they were afraid of it. Afraid of what it means that I found it. The sea opened up that day. I've never seen it this wide. No cliffs, no shore, no comforting shadow with the lighthouse behind me. Just the stench, endless and black. I thought I knew deep water before, but this was different. The air feels wrong here. The mists don't curl the same. It hangs straight, heavy, like it's been nailed in place. The horizon's a knife edge, silver where the sun tries to rise and fails. Even the gulls won't come this far. The boat feels smaller than it ever has. Every plank creaks like it's begging for the land again, but I can't turn back, not now. Not after the mayor's words. Not with that thing slumbering in the cooler behind me. I looked down once when the engine slowed and I shouldn't have. The water beneath me wasn't black, it was empty. An absence that swallowed light whole. I dropped one of the lamps over the side just to see how far it'd fall, and it vanished after a few feet. Not a flicker, not a ripple, just gone. But if I stared long enough into the pitch, I could see them. The lights. They were faint and far, deeper than any bottom should be. No reflections, no lanterns, just yellow, soft, almost breathing, like stars trapped beneath the waves. Each one pulsed slow in rhythm, with the hum I've been hearing in my bones when the nights are quiet, all in a line. It made my teeth ache just looking at it. I held the wheel tighter, knuckles grinding against the metal. The old engine rumbled beneath me, its beat steady as a heart, pushing forward through the still. Spray hit my face now and again, but it didn't feel like salt water anymore, more like thin oil, slick and cold. The sun sank behind me, slow as it ever did, but even when night fell, the sea didn't change. It was as dark as noon as it was now. The compass spun around twice before settling north again, though I swear I didn't touch it. Hours passed, maybe more, time slippery this far out, and then I saw it. Lights faint at first, then clearer. Rows of lamps swinging in the distance. They glow sickly orange through the fog. They hung low, almost kissing the water, and above them was a shape. The rig. It rose like a mountain of iron, half welded and half grown. Beams and platforms stitched together at impossible angles. The whole thing breathing smoke light from its veins. Chains hung down the sea like roots, clinging against the swells. I pulled closer, slow and careful, the rotors pushing against the pull of the current that wanted me anywhere but here. The dock lights watched me come in, those round glassy eyes blinking through the haze. It was almost like a town suspended above the water. The air smelled like rust and burnt brine, and the closer I got, the louder beneath me began to hum again, as if I knew this place and didn't forgive it. And as I reached the edge of the dock, the rig's shadow fell over me. The rig loomed above me like some metal god that forgot what shape it was meant to take. The air changed the closer I got, thick and hot, alive with the buzz of wires and the hiss of vents. Fire flew from a vent far, far above. Every beam glowed. Every pipe breathed. It didn't feel built, it felt like it was grown from the sea floor up. I throttled down the engine and drifted in slow, letting the hull kiss the dock with a wet clap. The lamps swung overhead, burning dull orange from the fog. and under that light stood a single man. A worker by the looks of him, a yellow slicker, gloves black with tar and oil. He was waiting, though I don't think it was for me. The moment my boots hit the deck, he turned. I saw his eyes catch my light, and saw how they widened when he took me in. The cooler in my hands must have made it worse, the iron still slick with black. He froze, mouth parting just enough for me to see the whites of his teeth before he dropped the rod he was carrying, some tool maybe, and snatched another from his belt. Not a wrench, not a hook. It was a weapon. A solid iron rod that hummed when he gripped it, crackling faintly. He pointed it straight at me, shouting something in that human tongue. Words I still couldn't untangle, but I heard the shape of them well enough. Stay back. I didn't move. The cooler's handle dug into my palms as I stood there, staring down at him through the mist. He was small, shoulders thin under that raincoat, but his fear filled the dark like smoke. The elevator behind him, massive thing of rusted iron and caged wire, was humming. He turned, he was slamming his hand against a red button set into the wall, the machine groaning to life, shuddering as it descended from somewhere far above, and chains were clinking, echoing through the fog. I stepped forward. The boards creaked under my weight, the sound sharp and final. He shouted again, voice breaking this time, but I kept walking. I could see my reflection in his visor, warped by fear and condensation. My face isn't what it used to be, I'll admit that. Flesh and fur fighting for room, or more like stacked if you think about it. Teeth where there shouldn't be any, wasn't any before. Eyes that were always too bright to hide. When I reached him, the elevator doors had just opened. He stepped inside, but I caught the gate before it could shut. My hand fit around the edge, easy, the metal screaming when my grip tightened. The workers stumbled back, rod raised, and every breath was a tremor. I ain't here to harm you, I told him. The words came low, but the sound of my voice, it must have hurt him. Felt like it rattled through my bones before the air. The speech lessons never did fix the way I echo. He didn't understand, or maybe he did, but the sight of me drowned any sense left in him. I just need to speak, I tried again, to your foreman. Where is he? He blinked, eyes darting between me, the cooler, and the elevator's dark mouth. The rod in his hand shook, its hum louder now. Foreman, I said once more, the word more like a growl than it should have been. Now. That did it. He nodded too fast and gestured upwards, stabbing his finger through the catwalks above where the rig smoke bled into the sky. I stepped into the lift, still holding the gate open with one hand, the cooler hanging from the other. When the white worker didn't follow, I turned my head. He was still there, pressed against the far wall, muttering to himself, his eyes fixed on the thing I carried. He didn't move again, not until the lift began to rise, and even as I ascended, the last thing I saw of him still standing there, one hand over his chest, the other holding the iron rod like it was a human's crucifix. Lift climbed slow, every chain link screaming like a thing alive. Above me, the rig's belly opened, spilling light down to the gate flooring. I could hear the world shift as I rose, boots scuffing, the thrum of machines, men shouting over engines. The closer I got, the more it sounded like a heart I wasn't meant to hear. When the cage broke the surface, it was daylight, but barely. The fog made of wall of pale, and the lamps on the gantry burned through it like false suns. Up there, the foreman stood. He was a big man, shoulders built from years of salt and work, wearing his hat low and his coat rolled to the elbows. He was barking orders, clipboard in hand, shipping crews, running chains and pulleys as they loaded crates. His voice cut clean through the noise, sharp and steady, like someone used to being obeyed, until he turned. It started with the sound, the grind of the lift locking into place, the gates rattling open. The worker who rode up with me stumbled out first, pale as wax, sprinting off before the foreman even looked up. Then his eyes found me. He froze mid-sentence, Jaw slack, the clipboard slipping from his fingers and hitting the grating with a clatter that silenced half the platform. Every man within earshot turned with him. A rippleless stillness, faces caught between disbelief and horror. The foreman took a step back, his eyes were wide, his voice cracking as he half whispered, half shouted, "Sweet Lord, what are you?" The words echoed, soft and brittle, swallowed by the quick of the engines. I stepped off the lift, the metal groaning under my boots. The cooler swung from my hand, dripping black onto the floor, each drop hissing with it hit. My shadows stretched long in the lamplight, wrapped and warped against the fog and the steel. "Foreman," I said. My voice carried strange up here, too deep, too cold. Didn't help like blood pouring from my mouth every time I opened it. "I got something from the mayor." He didn't answer right away. His eyes flicked between the cooler, my hand, my face, lingering on the seams of metal and flesh, the faint shimmer of fur where it caught it. Behind me, the workers began muttering. I could hear them. Monster, ghost, ironborn. Words that don't mean anything, but they were said anyway. The foreman found his tongue after a moment that felt like a lifetime. That thing you've brought. Who told you to come here?" "The mayor," I said. "Said he'd know what to do with it." He stared longer, eyes wide, sweat cutting through the oil on his face. Then he looked at the men around him, voice tight as wire. "Back to work. Now." They hesitated. No one moved. "Now!" he roared. The words slamming through the air like thunder. That did it. They scattered, their boots banging down the ladders, tools dropped, the clang of panic hiding in their work. The foreman didn't look back at me again until the last of them were gone, or at least busy. And when he did, he wasn't shouting no more. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice low like confessing a sin. "Whatever you are, you don't belong topside." The fog thickened, drowning the horizon. The silence between us stretched like a taut rope. Only the hum of the rig filled the space, the deep throb of the engines below, the hiss of steam, the slap of waves against metal. Foreman stood there, jaw set, eyes locked on me like I was a bad dream made flesh. I tried to smile, what passes for it these days. My split snout ached when I did, the meat of my cheeks creaking with the motion, and again, didn't exactly help there was blood pouring around my teeth. "It's nice to meet you too," I said, voice low and steady. "Mayor said this belongs here." I set the cooler down beside him with one hand, careful and deliberate. The lid hissed as it touched the steel, a drop of black water sliding down the edge and vanishing between the grates. The foreman stepped back, nostrils flaring, his hands curled to fists, and for a hot beat I thought he was about to strike me. "You think you can just walk up here?" he spat. "Your kind, whatever you are, got no rights on this platform. This is human work, human ground." He didn't finish, because behind him a voice cut through the snap of a whip. "Enough, Harold." We both turned. An old man stood near the edge of the platform, half hidden by the fog. He was frail, hunched, his lab coat yellowed and too long in the sleeves. The lenses of his goggles caught the light, hiding his eyes. But his voice carried with a curious sort of authority, brittle but sharp. He walked forward, slow but sure, like someone who'd already made peace with what he was walking towards. "You'll mind the guidelines, Foreman," he said, brushing past the other men without a glance. "Sentient or not, it speaks. That's enough to count." The foreman's face twisted, but he said nothing. His gaze dropped, shoulders stiff. He looked more afraid of that scientist than of me. The old man turned to me, head tilting as though he were studying something in a jar. "Well then," he murmured, voice crackling like old paper. "You brought something in, have you?" "Aye," I said. "Mayor said you know what to do with it." He crouched beside the cooler, fingertips hovering over the latch but never touching. "I can smell it already," he said softly. Old blood. Wrong age, wrong world, it shouldn't even be breathing. I didn't answer. The way he spoke made my skin feel too tight. He straightened again, his bones clicking like clockwork. You'll leave it here, he said faintly. Go back to your marrow, sea dog. Tell the mayor it'll be handled. The look between him and the foreman, the scientist's smile was small, but it was sharp. The foreman's face was all disgust. What'll you do with it? I asked. The scientist's smile didn't reach his voice. Study it, burn it, or bury it in the sea where it came from. That depends on whether it keeps twitching. He turned to the foreman. See to it's given fuel for the return trip. And mind yourself next time you forget protocol. The foreman's jaw flexed and he nodded. As the scientists walked back into the mist, coat dragging, I caught a glimpse on his back. A sigil stitched in yellow like a sun with too many rays. I was turning to leave when I heard the scientist mutter something. A soft click like he pulled the latch open after all. And then, wait. His voice wasn't sharp this time, it was strained. The kind of sound you make when you realize something's gone terribly wrong. He lifted his hand into the pale light. Even from where I stood I could see it. The dark smear clinging to his fingers like tar, slick and glistening. It caught the lamplight, and for just a heartbeat I thought it shimmered, moved. He stared at it long enough before turning to me, head tilting like a bird's. His goggles reflected my own face back, cracked and tired eyes. Where? He said quietly. Where did you get this? I hesitated. I could feel the eyes of the foreman and the other workers on me. The air gone still, the black stuff on its glove was moving slowly, like I wanted to crawl away. Behind the marrow, I said, voice steady but low. Round the bike island. There was something under the waves, big and old like a carcass that started to breathe again. The sea there wasn't there, it was that. The foreman made a choking sound when I looked. The color had drained from his face. The scientist, though, he just stared, and then in one motion he turned sharply to the foreman. You didn't tell me it reached this far. It wasn't supposed to, the foreman hissed. That line's been dead for months. Then it spread. The scientist wiped his hand with a cloth, though it didn't help. The stain had sunk deeper, black veins crawling beneath the skin. He looked back at me, and for the first time since I'd met him, there was something but in his voice. Fear. Listen closely, Sea Dog. This thing you found, it isn't natural rot. It's a breach. We shut down the drills after the first incidents, but if it's surfacing again... He trailed off, turning back toward the fog. The sea behind the rig was calm, too calm. The wave dared rise. I might mimic these voices as best I can, but I can't get the emotion he said in this next phrase. You said you came from the marrow, he said finally. Then he'll help us contain it before it reaches the island. If this substance has surfaced, your people... My people? I cut in, voice rough. You mean the ones who call me Sea Dog? I ain't like them. The scientist regarded me for a moment, unblinking. Perhaps not, but whatever you are, you're already part of this. And if we don't act soon enough, none of us will be able to call anything home. The foreman stepped forward, panic rising in his voice. Sir, we can't involve... We have no choice! The scientist snapped. Operations are suspended until this is resolved. If that corruption has reached shallow water, we're already too late. He turned back to me once more, his voice dropping low, almost reverent. You said you harpooned it. You hurt it. That means it can be hurt. That means it can die. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because all I could think about was the slick sound that the thing made when it moved, like 1,000 throats breathing through oil. And how even now I could smell it clinging to my hands. The scientist, led me down the main platform, his coat flapping like a torn sail in the wind. Below us, the rig pulsed with sound. Metal groans, the hiss of steam, boats striking steel. The whole thing moved like a living beast, breathing smoke and oil. As we crossed the graded walkway, heads turned. Workers stopped what they were doing. One dropped a wrench that clanged and rolled into the black below. They stared. Some with fear, others like that hollow look, the kind you've got when you wish you didn't see something you couldn't unsee. The smell of oil, salt, and blood hung heavy in the air. The rig's lights made everything shimmer like a fever dream, glitting off the plates off my shoulders. Then, the carve of my snout, the wet shine of my half-flushed hands. My footsteps were heavier than I meant them to be. Each one rang out through the grating like a bell tolling for something long dead. When he reached the far door, the scientist entered a code on a brass panel. It hissed as it hung open, leading into a corridor that smelled of rust and iodine. He motioned me in. Inside, the hum was constant. Tanks lined the walls, some filled with clear fuel and fluid, some with dark shapes floating inside. I didn't look too close. Machines clicked and murmured in corners. The lights above flickered, drowning the room in pulses of white and shadow. The scientist turned to me. His eyes, small, sharp things behind thick glass, scanned me like a specimen. You know, he began quietly, you're not from this place. That much is certain. His words hung in the air. I didn't answer right away. Ain't exactly news to me, I muttered finally. Been hearing it since I washed up. Half of 'em still cross the street when I walk by. He tilted his head. The faintest trace of pity or curiosity. Why can't I say curiosity? Softened on his face. You misunderstand me. I don't mean you're not local, I mean you're not of this world, not anymore. Something cold settled in my chest. What do you mean, not anymore? He stepped closer, circling me slow, hands clasped behind his back like he was walking around a statue. You bleed, he said. You speak, you breathe out air, you eat your food, but your composition, your very structure is wrong. Too dense, too cold, and yet it's changing. You're changing. I could throw a brick at you and it wouldn't even hurt you, would it? I said nothing. The hum of the machine filled the space between us. You came from the sea, didn't you? He continued. Out there, something remade you. I've seen it before, but never like this. He stopped in front of me, eyes glittered like wet stone. The sea is known for not just taking, it trades. You must have given it something for it to let you live. I looked past him, to one of the tanks. Inside, something that might have been a fish twitched slowly, its bone folded like paper, its mouth hung and open in silent scream. I didn't ask to live, I said, but I'm here now. The scientist nodded once, curt. Then you'll help us find what's been broken. Whatever happened beneath that surface, whatever you brought back, it's spreading faster than we thought. He gestured toward a door sealed by a giant wheel lock. Beyond it, faint light flickered like something alive. Come, he said. You should see what you've pulled up. The door groaned open with a sound like metal remembering pain. Inside it was colder, far too cold for a place like this. The air was damp, thick with the tang of brine and iron. Tanks lined the walls again. These weren't filled with water. They were filled with formaldehyde, bubbling faintly as if they were alive. The old man gestured towards the table in the center of the room. I set the cooler down beside it. The sound it made was the steel. It was heavier than it should have been. He snapped on a pair of gloves, his hands shaking not from fear but from age or maybe excitement. Then he unlatched the cooler. The stench hit us first. Rotten metal and the faint of sweetness of decay, plague and a rot. He looked down and whispered a word, no, a name. It was long and twisted. It slithered through the air, a thing made of syllables not meant for my tongue. I didn't understand it, but it made the back of my neck prickle. That, he said reverently, is an Atelepsis bifurcata. A relic from Silurian, a creature that predates civilization by nearly 400 million years. He said it like he was speaking some kind of scripture. I just stared. A fish, I muttered. Dead's dead. He just gave me a sharp look. This isn't a fish, this is a history. This thing lived before man could crawl, before the sea took its breath. It should not exist, and yet... He reached into the cooler, his gloves squelching as he lifted the thing out. The light above us caught its skin, thin as parchment, stretched over tight over a shape that looked half bone, half armor. Its mouth wasn't really a mouth at all, just a slit where plates met. He carried it to one of the tanks and dropped it into the water. The liquid fizzed and clouded instantly. A deep, wet hiss filled the room as the oil began to peel away, rising like smoke beneath the glass. The old man pressed the fish deeper in with his gloved hand until it was fully submerged. Bubbles streamed from the seams of its skull, glinting yellow in the tank light. "You see the structure here," he said, pointing with a trembling finger. "No jaws, cartilage instead of bone, yet the tissue is fresh, not fossilized. This shouldn't be possible." He turned to me, eyes gleaming behind the fog of his lenses. "Do you understand what this means? It didn't die millions of years ago. It was preserved perfectly. Something down there is keeping things alive." I didn't answer. I couldn't. I watched the water churn around the creature, watched the lash of the tar slow off like dead skin, drifting to the surface, and I swear beneath all that motion, its eyes twitched. Just once. "Old gods," I whispered, without thinking. The scientist glanced up quickly. "What was that?" Nothing, I said quickly. "Just thought it moved." He stared at the tank a long while before answering, voice low and careful. "Let's certainly hope it didn't." The bubbling had died down. The tank hissed quietly, the water now murky and still. The old man peeled off his gloves, black stains crawling up the latex, and stepped back to wipe the sweat from his brow. His breathing was shallow, ragged, but his eyes were lit with a kind of fever that didn't belong to sanity. He turned toward me then, pulling the lenses from his face. They left pale rings around his eyes. The skin beneath was paper thin, veins mapped thin and trembling. "My name is Edward," he said. "Edward Mallory. I oversee geological and biological studies along this stretch of the sea, the Maro Archipelago. We were sent here to study the fault line." I really didn't understand what he was saying. They were big words. I'm still struggling to even speak this language. He said fault line like it was a curse. This region is one of the most anomalous on records. The readings beneath the archipelago don't move like the Earth should. They breathe. Something's been stirring down there again. Something that's older than the line itself. He paused, watching me. "And you, Sea Dog, seem to be at the center of it." Hearing my name from his lips made me spine lock tight. I hadn't told him. No one here has called me that but the townsfolk, and I hadn't spoken it aloud since I stepped onto the rig. I shifted my weight. "How do you know my name?" Edward didn't answer right away. He moved to a cabinet, pulling open a drawer that squealed like a wounded thing, and took out a small tin. He opened it, revealing a white pill nestled like pearl. "You're changing," he said, ignoring my question. "The blood vessels around your jaw are rupturing as your bone reshapes. You should take these. They'll thin the bleeding, stop it from clotting where it shouldn't, and if you can, try speaking up here instead." He tapped the side of his temple, his eyes cutting into mine. "With your mind. I suspect it's easier for you than the rest of us." The metal floor creaked beneath my boots. My mouth throbbed. The teeth had grown, aching like broken glass. I could taste iron again. "How?" I began, but stopped. The pain lanced through my jaw, hot and sharp. I swallowed hard. "How do you know that?" I asked at last. Words slurred around blood. Edward's gaze didn't waver. Well, because I've seen your kind before. He set the tin in my palm and closed my fingers over it. It had many of those little pills inside of it. His hand was cold but not from fear. Don't ask me how I know your name, Sea Dog, he said softly. Ask yourself why it's the only one you remember. The lights above us flickered once, light enough and long enough for the glass of the tank to gleam like an eye again. Edward turned from the tank at last, the reflection of the ancient thing still swimming across his glasses. His voice had gone quieter now, less like a teacher and more like someone speaking to something that might vanish if he raised his tone too high. You've brought something else with you, haven't you? I blinked, taken back. What are you on about now? He nodded toward my coat pocket, toward the pocket near my ribs I hadn't thought twice about in weeks. Whatever it is you're keeping there, may I see it? I froze. The weight of it had become so familiar I'd stopped feeling it. Not until that moment did I realize how warm it felt against the fabric, like a heartbeat, like everything else here. Slowly I reached in. My fingers brushed at metal, cool, uneven. When I drew it out, the lamplight hit the object and painted the whole room like a pale, trembling blue. It was half a pin. The end was jagged, the break old and clean. At its head a small orb, glass or gemstone I couldn't tell, glowing faintly from within, like the deep glow of a plankton still caught in the water. It was red, but it gave off blue. Tiny shards of ceramic clung to its metal shaft, still fused in places, smooth as porcelain. Too small to belong to anyone, too strange to belong anywhere. Edward's eyes widened a little, not in fear but in recognition. He stepped closer, his voice barely a whisper. Where did you find that? The manor, I said, slow. The one on the third island. There was someone there. Looked like me, spoke like me. He jumped. Edward's jaw tightened. And you took it from there? I nodded once. I didn't really think much of it. Just felt like it was meant for me. He reached his fingers hovering over the pin before finally taking it from my hand. The glow deepened when he touched it, like it recognized him. The air around us seemed to hum, faint but constant, just low enough to feel it in my teeth. Good, he murmured. It's good you have this. I frowned. Why? He gave a soft, almost humorous laugh. Because, my friend, if what I think is true, then this may be the only thing keeping you together.